I was working at Walmart in Marshall, and he working in the sporting goods department. And I'm working there one afternoon. It's pretty slow. It's right around the 4th of July or so. And I'm standing at the register, and I sense this presence over me. And I look
Yeah.
up, and I'm staring literally straight up at George Foreman, just this gigantic, hulking individual. He was wearing pants that were cut off at the knee. He was wearing a shirt that didn't have any sleeves. It was one of those button-down shirts where I don't know if he had cut the sleeves out or if he gotten it that way, but his guns were blazing.
Yeah.
And he had he had to have at least 25 or 30 fishing poles that he just laid on the counter.
Gosh.
And I'm sitting there thinking, this is George Foreman. Why does he have 25 fishing poles that he's buying?
Jeez.
And so I rang him up. I don't know, man. I mean, it was at least $1,000 worth of fishing poles, something like that. It had to be. And he was wearing one of those fishing hats with all the lures on it hanging down.
Yes.
And if you didn't know he was George Foreman, and if he wasn't standing 9 feet tall in front of me, you would have never known he was George Foreman. He was just a regular East Texas guy, looking like he's about to do a lot of fishing. And so I checked him out, and he asked me how my day was going. And I got to have a little conversation with him, and just acted like he knew me. And that was just George. I mean, if you ever were around him, he made you feel welcome, and he made you feel like he knew you and you were somebody. But come to find out, probably later, I talked to some folks after that, and he said what George was probably doing with all those fishing poles was he had probably brought a bunch of kids in from his youth center, and he was taking them fishing in East Texas.
Yeah.
And he was buying all their fishing poles. So anyway, that's my George Foreman really story. I saw him a couple other times and listened to him speak. But anyway, well, the world lost a good one a year ago today.
They did. And, it's funny for me. I don't know. So, I didn't grow up around here. Obviously, I'm in my 16th year here. But it's funny. I found it real curious. The first few years I moved here. So I'm a fan of the show King of the Hill. The animated show, and of course in the fictitious town of Arlen, Texas, which is kind of, I think, a combination of Arlington and Garland. Of course, back when it was made, Arlington and Garland were not what they are now. But there were times that in the first few years of living in Marshall, I'd look at my wife and I'd be like, I kind of feel like we're living in Arlen. Like there are things that happen here that I'm like, I see that in the show. And I don't know if you knew this, but there was a show where George Foreman made an appearance. He was on King of the Hill. And so I was familiar with the show, and I'm feeling like we already kind of live here. And then I find out from our church in my first few months living here that George Foreman's got a place right out here. And I'm like, gosh, dang, we are living here. It was kind of funny. But yeah, like that is a perfect story, what you shared of him, because a larger than life, world renowned personality who is in a Walmart buying some fishing poles to take some kids fishing. That just fits. It feels right.
Yeah, it did. And I'll never forget when I shook his hand, how big his hands were.
Yeah.
Biggest hands I've ever seen. I mean, it completely engulfed my little tiny, hands here. I mean, just so much strength in those hands. And the only other one I can compare it to is one time that I went and saw and listened to a presentation and testimony given by Josh Hamilton. Remember Josh Hamilton, the Rangers baseball player? He had similar big hands, which explains his ability to swing a bat and hit a baseball the way he could.
Yeah.
But George takes the cake, man. I mean, biggest hands I've ever seen, but also the biggest heart. I mean, just a tremendous human being. And like I said, the world misses him. We need more like that.